Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'll drop the link to the doc in the chat. Okay, so we've made some really good progress in the last couple of weeks. Thank you for everybody for helping out to get through the fast API changeover. So over this past week, I was able to take all of the fast API changes, all of our microservices, and updated the Helm chart in the cloud build. So we could then go ahead and install into our Azure cluster. So let me give you just an idea of what we have running now. So looks like everything is working pretty good. So I'll show you the back end first, where we're at, just to give you a feel for where we're, how the microservices were kind of put together, and our next steps. So one of the things that the initial pass was to just go ahead and use Nginx as a reverse proxy. Whoops, let me go to ingresses. And if we look at the Ortelius namespace, so this is our website. This is a direct Nginx. This is the Hugo server basically running, and same with the docs. So these are not necessarily our microservices, but they're running in the same namespace as part of that process. Our other microservices, I kind of took some of the deploy hub SaaS breakdown of the monolith. So on the monolith side, we have kind of the front end, which is like all the JavaScript that gets loaded for by Tomcat still, but it's still like the static content side of things. And then the general one is the monolith itself, which is all the Java code, which is the Tomcat. And then we have the Nginx, which is doing the reverse proxy. And then we have our new microservices like the validate user, the component item, the dep package, and the text file uploads, and also the read for the dependency packages. So this is kind of what our microservices look like right now. I started with Nginx as a reverse proxy to take the inbound traffic. So you can see this is where inbound is coming into, and using that to go ahead and dish off the appropriate transactions based on the URL to make sure they go to the right place as part of that process. Some of the things I had to do, we have some environment variables that I had to make sure that we're using when in the Helm charts. And that was some of the changes at the deployment level. Was just we had the basic Helm charts in place. It was just tying together all the little loose ends around environment variables, database connections, those type of things. So all the Helm charts have been loaded. All the secrets, certificates are part of our cluster at that level. So if we actually look at what we have on the running side, right now we're running them really small, just because we don't have any traffic. So everything's just a replica set of one at that level. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at it, it'll be off of dev.ortelius.io. We'll see if it comes up. because I was messing with it yesterday. So what will happen is when we go through and this may not come up. I was running into a problem yesterday with our cluster. There it is. So one of the things that you'll be able to do is come in. I did put a few little sample dependency packages out here. I have to add in some additional components. Also, if you go to the Ortelius site and you go into, oh, it hasn't been pushed yet. I'll show you locally. I think I still have running local. Website. So one of the things I did, I'm just going to run off my local. I can type. So this is just the local version of our website. I added in a sign up section with your, just putting your company name. The company name could be any particular, just make up a name. Same with the project. And then this information at the bottom is used to create your user ID and such. So what will happen is when you hit the sign up button here, we'll actually go ahead and create a new domain based on your company name that you put in, and then your product name as well. And then we'll go ahead and preload that with the hipster store data. So you'll have something to play around with. Now, one thing with the hipster store data, it doesn't have any of the the dependency packages being exported and imported yet. So what we'll actually have to do is load in the additional information. So I'll get to that and make sure that that's being loaded. You have data to play with or a way to go ahead and load that in. So this is one that I did as part of the testing, initial testing, just to make sure I had all the endpoints working. So the README, the Swagger, the CVE issues, the license consumption.
Steve, what to do? There is set up on the back end to make this happen, right?
No.
So how does the this component know to go to grab the README? How does it know the location?
Oh, that's what I mean. So one of the things this one came out of a pipeline. So that's the one thing I have to add in for the hipster store data is a way to go ahead and associate this data with the hipster store sample that we have, or we just go ahead and not worry about using the hipster store data and just have a more generic pipeline that people can look at the shared data. So
I don't know if I understand what you're saying.
So I need to get data in here, and
we can. So let's just say we're a customer.
Okay.
How does a customer, when they're setting up the component, how does the customer, when you define your component, how do you define what GitHub repository for the README? Because I'm assuming that's where you're pulling it from.
Right.
And so, is there something that is a field that they have to complete? How's it being brought in?
Right. So typically, if we look at I think it'll be underneath here. It's gonna be in the other repo. Oh, there it is. So we use a program called it's a Python module, and it will go ahead and like it's basically our CLI. Oops, picked the wrong one. Look at this one. And what it will do is basically you pass it a bunch of parameters for it to go ahead and do the updates. So if we actually go over to the regular Ortelius repository, and if we look at, let's say, docs, that's a good one. That one has it implemented. So at the docs repo, if we look at the cloud build and we look at that YAML, we are calling our DH program to go ahead and update and create new components as part of the pipeline process. So when customers want to start saving their service catalog information, they go add this line into their Jenkins file or their cloud build to go ahead and tell Ortelius, I have new data to send you. And one of those parameters is like the README file, the Swagger file, the CVEs, the licenses. Those are just additional parameters to this update component Python script.
And if they're not using a orchestration tool, is there a way to do it?
Yeah, you could just do it directly. That's why I was saying with the sample program, I have to figure out what's going to be the best way to load in data. If we want to tie it to the hipster store, or if we want to tie it to, just go ahead and load things later.
Well, if you're passing that stuff in from a, just tell me if I'm crazy, if you're passing that stuff in at a, from the orchestration engine like Jenkins or Circle CI or whoever, you're giving them a parameter. I'm assuming every orchestration engine allows you to do that. Couldn't you just put those as fields in the component general information?
You mean
those same parameters? Couldn't you just put it over here on the right?
Right now, we are not, we don't have a way to say upload or README. We are assuming that from the front end side, that this information is going to come from a pipeline process. Now we can add a button that says upload README, upload Swagger, upload CVEs, and upload the licenses.
Right, but if you did that, what would that upload do?
It would take a file such as the README and upload it and associate it to this version of the component.
And where would that file come from?
It would have to come from your computer.
So it would be an upload, would be a search. You would give it a file search, but dialog.
Right.
And does that file change?
Yes. So not very often. Like the Swagger one will change more. The README basically is pretty static. Swagger, if you change, your parameters to your calls, that will be where you need to upload a new version of the Swagger.
Is there a standard place where that Swagger file is going to come from for every component, or does that change?
It can be different for how people structure their source code, and in their Git repo.
Is that common
Common what
for
to?
people to change the location in their Git repo?
They could put it in a directory called, you could put it in a directory called API, and I could put it in a directory called docs. So
Okay, but if I'm the owner of this component, right? If I'm the owner of this component, wouldn't I know where I'm putting it?
yes, and that's why on the upload button, you know where to go find it and upload it to this component.
That's why I'm thinking if we could just put a field that says this is, the location of the Swagger information, location of that, then we just go and pull it from that pointer.
Yes, that could be the other way is instead of us using files, that we use URLs and that they take the URL and we read it at that point in time when we go to
load.
render it. Now the problem is when you do a URL, URLs typically won't have a versioning history to them. So if you go in and for this version of the component, the 121 version, we're using this version of the Swagger. Now, if I go and change my post parameters and I create version 122, and I don't change the URL that is being pointed to is the same, what will happen is version 121 and 122 will both have the same Swagger content, but it'll be inaccurate because somebody's gone and changed the parameters.
I get that, but that's, I'm trying to solve, let's say 70% of the problems, not 100. I know that there are those kind of edge cases, but what is the majority of the people doing, and can we automate any of this or make it so that they don't have to include it in a so if they initially define their component, couldn't they be able to? I think we have to wait a way to bring this information up.
Okay, so
And not deal with edge cases. I get the edge case problems.
So we can add a URL for both the README and the Swagger that we can go ahead and when you say upload, you can upload and you can use a URL which will go read the URL to bring in the data, or we can just upload a file and we would upload the file that way. So you can point to your Git repo for the README, or you can point to your local file system for the README, for example.
Yeah, I think
and you can do it all manually through the UI. You could go in and if you wanted to, you can go in and type in the commit. If you wanted to go create a component, you could go in and type in the commit, your repo, your tag, but that's just not practical. You can go type in your container digest, but most people are wanting this to come out of their orchestration tool. That's the 90% case that we're 95% case where we're getting this stuff out of the orchestration tools. And people aren't typing it in manually because it just takes too long.
Yeah, I get that part, but I think that the other data, I feel like there should be a way for them to, when they initially define their component, that they can put this information in. So I think we should put some kind of an upload button. And that doesn't mean that it stays that. If they want to connect it then to a CI tool, the CI tool can then update that information, right? For the next version of the component. But for the initial base version of the component, I feel like we should provide a way, if it's never been defined before, to define it.
Yeah, so what will happen is oops, wrong screen. Actually, let me go that route. easier to read. Let me switch here. Where's website, for example. So what will happen is in the orchestration tool, you tell us what the application that this component is associated to, and then we give it the component name and basically the variant and the version. So that's like the base information that we need to know from the orchestration side. From that, if they've never interacted with Ortelius at all, we'll go ahead and create base versions of applications and components for them automatically. So there's no need to go ahead and associate the website component with the application. Now,
Wait a second. So who's writing this YAML file? Is it the application team, or is it the
developer
of the microservice owner or the application?
This one is the microservice owner is writing a new microservice, and
does that owner know that it's going to be used by a particular application?
Typically they do.
Oh, I don't think that they would.
Now, if they don't know that there's going to be a consuming application, then you just leave off the application, and we'll go ahead and create the components, and we'll create a base component and then the first version of the component, and then from there we'll start self-maintaining the version numbers going forward.
Right. So, and then it would if somebody then an application team then is using Ortelius's to create their package, then it would start getting associated with the application because somebody's used it.
Right.
And then is there a domain that you're going to assign here?
Yeah, it's right in the name. So this one goes into the global Ortelius SaaS domain.
So I don't think that I think it should just be, I don't think you should require the application to be part of that. I think it should just be.
It's not required.
Okay. Just the domain should be required.
It's not, all you have to do is here, I'll show you another one just so you guys understand.
Oh, somebody's got to document all this. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And
so if we look at this one, come on. So this one is building our monolith, and our monolith gets built multiple times, and so the monolith gets built in basically in three pieces. So we have the Nginx side, we have the UI, we have the general. So what we're doing is the very last one that we do is where we actually pass the application name to be created at again. So what's happening is we create components. So we create 3 components, and then at the very end, we associate all those new component versions with the application. And then we deploy just that version of the application. Before, we were doing a build and deploy of every component, and it just didn't, we were getting too many versions out there because of the way the monolith repo is working, because it's very linear. So we'd build a component, then deploy it, then we build another component and deploy it. It just made more sense to build all the components and then deploy once.
Right, I'm not sure how that, okay,
So what I'm just trying to point
good to
out
know.
is that you don't have to have application name is not a requirement.
Okay, so when we document it, we'll just say this is what is required and what isn't required. But I think going back to just the collecting the data, and I'm seeing this from the role of the service owner. The service owner doesn't own an application, that's a consumer. So I'm seeing this from the producer.
Right. So the producer does not have to provide an application that they
Right.
are
And then
that they are going to be associated to.
right, and a single microservice may have its own workflow, which means then they could put this data in that the microservices workflow for Jenkins or for the CI engine.
Correct. And that's what this is, like this one.
Right. But if they don't have a workflow, they're just publishing it. I feel like we should give them a way to import this information.
Yeah, we can add an upload button, or you can do it from the command line. Either way.
Let's not do things from the command line if we don't have to. I don't think it's bad to give them an option to do it from the command line, but I think that there should be an easy way to either enter the URL, and then once the URL is entered, we go and load it.
Yes, we'll have to do something like that.
Anybody on that call have an idea which way it should be? Utkarsh, you've looked at this. How do you think we should solve it?
Just a one observation I have. So in the orchestration model, we are, taking this details like what is the repo for the component, the GitHub repo. So I believe like all the information should come from the Git repo itself. So what should we do? We should intelligently, fetch out this information, like what is the README file there and what is the Swagger file. So once we are, able to do that is good. But in case if the README is not present there, so I think we should, provide the option for upload there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
That would maintain a consistency also.
Yeah. And
the rest is coming from a scan, like the CVE issues. That's coming from a scan, right?
yeah, it's like
the license.
Yeah, that's the scanning that Utkarsh put together to run. Basically, it runs the container and injects the scanning tools to produce a couple JSON files. Now we know that it's very limited right now. We're just looking at, it was safety and Cyclone DX for Python. Now there's a whole list of scanning of the C# codes, scanning of Golang. There's open source tools out there to do that, and that's down the road. We'll have to add in those, I don't know if we want to call them plugins or add-ons to go scan for those containers containing those languages and then import the data back into Ortelius.
Okay. And is there a need to have like the integration for doing that, I'll have to understand, but is there a need to potentially put a scan button on these options?
I don't think we could, because
so are we, at what point are we grabbing that when when the new container's been updated to a registry?
Correct. Utkarsh, you're pulling from a tag, right? Any tag will work. Is that correct?
Are you asking about the this is scanning
Yeah.
document
Yeah,
that are
you're
generated?
yeah, your Golang program, it'll just look at any tag in registry, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's
So that is the image I'm doing on the image tag. Yes.
okay. Yeah, so it's any image we can scan. So somebody can run the scan on their laptop and it'll create a JSON file, and then they could we could potentially do an upload button here to upload the CVEs for that JSON file.
Okay. Well, if there's any way we can manually kick off the scanning or the import of the README or the Swagger, I think that we should go ahead and do that. I think it will be odd if we don't, if we're always relying on an external process to give it to us. I think that relying on the external process to make sure it continues to be accurate is correct, but for the base version, and I don't know if this is something we want to, the upload buttons should only be on the base version, and then it's not available for any additional versions. But I think that we have to think about.
It's gonna need to be there on every version because, like I said, you could change parameters from one version to other version in your Swagger. So
Yeah, but for the most part, when we create new versions, that is getting kicked off by CI tool.
right, and one of the things that you have to remember is the way we've implemented the CI side of things, you don't have to have base versions pre-created in order to use it. So there's no longer that requirement to have base versions created.
There's always a first version, right?
There will be, if there's no version existing, we'll go ahead and create that first version as part of the process. So if we look at the components here, we created this base version out of the CI process when we created this version 121.
Did you create them both at the same time?
Yes.
I see. So you do have a base version. It's just that you create a base version and then create a second one that shows this is the
parent.
Yeah.
And then when we go and run this again, the next time we do it, we'll get version 122, for example, and the parent of that will be 121. So the version tree will still be in place as part of that history that we normally maintain.
Okay.
But there's no need to go into our UI and type in 100 microservices as a base version.
Yeah. So is that new or is that something that's been there?
We've been evolving it on through the CLI side of things as part of the integration into the orchestration tools.
Okay. All right, and then I have another question about the dev Ortelius environment that you created.
Yep.
Do we have also a dev documentation? Did you bring the documentation along with it?
I did not make a development documentation website.
Can you?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we're going to need that because there's a lot of documentation that does need to be done on this. And I think it'll be easier for everybody if we have a separate dev site for the documentation.
Yeah, I will figure that out. We can do it. What happens with this dev website, like I said, is running through Nginx to proxy out all the transactions to the microservices. In addition to that, we actually are running Istio, which is a lot easier. So Istio is actually doing the routing to the docs and to the website. So we have more control through Istio to do what you're talking about, having like a multiple
Yeah, yep.
website, multiple
Well, I just need to be
endpoints.
able to, if there's a branch or something that we need to manage inside of GitHub, so when everybody goes to do to start working on the documentation, we're working on the dev version and not the prod version.
Yeah, we can split that out. And what we'll do is we'll create a, like you said, we can call it a service catalog branch or whatever that
Well,
will.
I think you were going to call this 10, 10.0.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start calling it Ortelius 10, version
Okay.
10?
Yeah, there's and the reason from an architectural standpoint, the reason why I didn't do Istio for all the microservices is for simplicity of the install. We can have a single Helm chart, or a Helm chart includes other Helm charts, to go ahead and kind of install all the microservices in one go through a Helm chart without having to deal with Istio configurations, because not everybody's running Istio in
No,
their.
I understand. Yeah, I get that. We're just doing it internally so we can manage things in our cluster easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
We will also have an Istio version of our microservices, just not today.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So if somebody wants to use Istio for routing, or if they want to use just a basic reverse proxy world, either one will we'll get there. And then eventually we'll need to do an operator as well.
Right. But for right now, in terms of helping out us who want to help with the development and the documentation, it's great that we have a dev version now that we can start pounding on. And you did show the sign in?
Yep. So here's the sign up.
Okay.
It's on my local. I got to figure out what's happening. Something's wrong with our cluster because it won't update through Helm for some reason. I got to dive in and see why there's an issue. We ran into last week or the week before, we ran into this weird thing with Azure with a certificate expiring on us.
Okay.
So, but it's going to get there.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
I'm trying to get that out today.
Can you? And the other thing is on the tickets, you have your submit issues under the Ortelius repo. Do we want to ask for to assign a label to it?
Oh yeah, I can update that. So
we just call it Ortelius 10.
Yeah. So where are they? So if we go to, we could just label them as, what we could do is right now, the project is called service catalog, I think. Yeah. So these are the issues that are associated with the service catalog. Most of these are ready to be tested.
Okay. So why don't you just add to your, before you update it, add to your page that to track them under the service catalog label.
Okay. And then maybe we can, I could put out here a tag or something like that, like waiting to be tested or something like that.
Well, can't we use the, doesn't it have like a Kanban board that we can do that on?
Yeah, I'll have to look to see.
There's to do, there's.
Yeah, let me look at the project. See what's in it. Yeah, so these are, I'll have to add another column for testing.
Okay.
I'll work on the Kanban side so we can.
Yeah, just add another column right there after done testing, and then
yeah, I don't know much about the automation on that. And then do we want documented before testing or after?
I think that I don't think it matters, just as long as somebody reads it, but I think this should say, it should be in testing. And then, you know, just put document review. And then you can do a final column that says, now it's really done. Just say completed. Yeah, really done. Perfect. Okay, so I think that what we have to make sure, because we have a lot of work to do, and I know people are, even though we only have a few of us on the call today, they are interested in helping. We just have to make this as easy as possible for them. I don't think that we've really created a good platform for getting people to help with the coding, but we can try to address that later. But let's make sure that just getting the testing done and the documentation done, we can make it as easy as possible for everyone. And I think creating that branch on the documentation and the way you have the dev environment done helps.
Yep, let me do that real quick.
Just a quick question here.
Yep.
So what kind of testing are we expecting? Is that a functional testing, or are we doing some load runner kind of testing or something?
Functional testing to make sure that, like, one of the things, I don't know if you noticed it, I just look at this all the time. So there's actually a bug already that I just noticed while we're on the call. So if you look at the information here, one point this wasn't coming up for some of the components, and some of them it was. So that was one thing I needed to double check on was, but like functional testing, like does the upload button work for the README when we add it? Does, you know, those type of things. Are we able to fill out and persist this new data as functional testing? Those type of things, you know, taking the JSON files and making sure that they upload and everything gets rendered correctly. That's the
I think
the type of functional testing.
I think I opened up some tickets on those specifically, and those tickets need to be better defined in for Hacktoberfest, because Hacktoberfest is only 2 weeks away. And it would be great to be able for testing, if there's a way for us to create pull requests for testing.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of those are going to be so if you find an issue, so let's say we have like this wasn't showing up, that we just create an issue, then that issue goes and we look at it, we fix it, then it moves through the process again, we retest. One of the things that happens is there's automation all through the back end part. Somewhere along the way yesterday I got it messed up, but the general idea is when we do an update to any of the coding, that it'll automatically get deployed out to the dev site. So we'll have to put some I'll put a branch out there, like you said, Tracy, a 10.0 branch that we can build off of and deploy from. So everybody's just, when we do a PR, we'll do a PR to that branch, and then we can, the automation will move it all out. So we'll refresh the whole UI part here that we're looking at. Also, we'll refresh the dev documentation, the 10.0
Right, so
documentation.
Because what we need to be able to have, let's say Arvin wants to take on the task of adding those buttons.
Mm-hmm.
He needs a way to be able to see what it looks like. And there's not right now a way to create a local version of this, right?
No, you can run it local. We have in the contributor guide, there is documentation on like your Eclipse setup and those type of things.
Okay.
Guideline.
It's going to be in a
Oh, it's under
probably become a contributor, or it's in the documentation. Yeah.
So like the Eclipse IDE set up for front end development. That's all here, how to set it up, get it running.
And is there something that says how to create a local version of all the code and how to build it?
Yeah, this, when you do like the front end piece, Eclipse, because it's monolith, will build all of it. The Python code doesn't need to be built. You just got to run it. So that's one of the things with us changing the microservices is to create a local like development environment. Right now I run things manually. That's what all these windows are. So this is like one, I'm debugging multiple transactions at the same time. So I brought all these up into development windows so I can watch what's happening from the front end to the back end type of thing. Now this, because we just got the Helm charts sorted out last week, we will be able to stand up a local Kubernetes environment like through Kind, run a Kind environment that allow you to provision all this stuff and debug it. So that's the next thing I have to do is to, on the documentation side, even though we have the monolith already kind of laid out on how to run that, I need to add on how to run everything in a local Kubernetes cluster and debug it.
Okay. All right. Well, we're way over, and I think you were supposed to have a cohort today. I'm not sure.
I didn't get any emails that people signed up.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if that was supposed to happen, if I was supposed to get emailed.
I don't know. I don't think that.
I don't
Yeah.
know how
Okay.
that webinar thing was working.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, yeah. I'll have to look, let me get in. I'll look at the.
Yeah, there was 3 registrants.
Oh, I didn't know there was any registrants. How do I'll work with you to figure that out.
Okay.
I may need to create these instead of you creating them so I can get notified that I have to show up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to split.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks everyone.